What's up everybody, John Boat Jiraiya here. Welcome to another episode of Fish O'Clock. In today's episode, we're going to cover a comprehensive guide on how to locate, structure, and fish using your fish finder. If you haven't checked out my previous video titled Fish Finder Debunks, please be sure to click on that. The link is up here in the left hand side. So for today's video, I'm going to start off by giving you guys some tips and tricks on how to install your transducer, some common pitfalls, and some common issues that beginners make when it comes to fish finders. Then we're going to go into how I use the fish finder to locate both structure and fish. And then finally, to wrap it all up, I'll show you guys me using all these techniques, and then we'll hopefully have some fish to catch and show you guys that everything works.
It's Fish O'Clock.
Now I'm going to go ahead and get into some common pitfalls that beginners make when they install their fish finder. And the number one issue that I see is the transducer installation. So the transducer, there's a couple different ways to mount the transducer. You can mount them on the transom, you can mount them, some of the kits actually come with a motor mounting bracket that goes underneath the motor. I found for this particular boat, the transom mount seems to work the best. I know a lot of folks will also mount them under their trolling motors. So you've got some choices, and it really just depends on what your setup is as to what the best is. But going back to the common pitfalls, you know, I see a lot of times the transducer is not leveled. That can be an issue. There's quite a bit of videos out there on how to level a transducer. It's a little bit more complicated than just taking a level, putting it on the transducer and making sure that it's flush and that it's leveled. So there's quite a bit of videos on the internet. I'm not going to cover that right now, but the other thing I see a lot is this cable is very sensitive. You're actually supposed to drill a hole through the transom and run it through there. I haven't done that yet, so that's something that I have to do. But you want to avoid doing any really sharp, you know, 360 degree turns with this cable. That can, any sharp angles on this cable can really damage that connection, make it poor. The other thing is when you wire it, you want to make sure that the actual cable is not, you know, so this is my trolling motor cable, so you don't want to zip tie these together because then you'll get electro interference, and that interference manifests itself on the screen as like vertical bars, and it makes it very difficult to use the fish finder and to get an accurate picture. So just avoid any other wiring when you're installing your transducer. Make sure that everything is clear and that you've kind of got a clear path to that transducer wire. The other piece of advice that I have, which is critical, you know, if you read the manual that your fish finder came with, a lot of manuals will have so there is a minimum distance that the transducer needs to be from the outboard motor. In my transducer's case, it's about 12 inches. So you want to make sure that that transducer is at least, at a minimum, 12 inches away from the propeller. If it's not, then you'll get a lot of interference from the propeller pushing water, and you'll see that actually causes quite a bit of a disturbance and will degrade the quality of the images that you receive. So that's a big one. The second one too is so most outboard motors, the prop spins in a clockwise motion, and so it's recommended that you mount the transducer on the starboard side. That's on the right side when you're driving the boat forward, and that just prevents the amount of interference from the propeller wash. But if you have a outboard that spins the other way, you'll actually have to put the transducer on the port side of the boat. So yeah, there's a couple of, that kind of concludes a couple of tips and tricks for installing the fish finder. And we'll get into my next section now, where we'll actually do an on-the-water demo, and I'll show you guys how I use the Garmin 73SV to locate structure and then to find fish. So stay tuned. Alright guys, we're out here on Inks Lake, and for the first part of my demo, I'm going to show you how to use your fish finder to locate structure. So for those that aren't familiar with the term structure, structure is just a change in the bottom of the lake. So this could mean a drop off, a rock pile, a stump, anything that's on the bottom of the lake that's changed is going to be structure. So we're going to be using side imaging in my first part of the demo. Side imaging allows us to quickly and effectively cover a lot of ground when we're searching for the structure. I can do about 50 to 75 feet on either side of my boat. We're gonna do that first, and then for those of you who I know don't have side imaging, the side imaging feature on your fish finder, I'm also gonna cover how to use traditional broadband sonar to find structure on the lake. So this is always the first step when you get out on a lake that either you're unfamiliar with or you don't really know where to go. First thing to do, don't look for fish, look for structure, okay? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show you the settings that I use on my Garmin EchoMap UHD 73SV. So these settings will really be applicable to any of the Garmin units, including the 93SV. But I'm going to show you, first of all, the auto setting, and then I'm going to show you how to tune in the settings to get the best and the clearest picture. So let's get started. So I'm going to full screen my side imaging, and this is the GT54 UHD transducer, so this is not the high-powered GT56 one. So right now I've got the range on 100 feet, so that's 50 feet on either side of the boat. I'm going to go ahead and set all the settings to auto so you can see what those settings look like. So Inks Lake, this lake is there's a lot of rock and really just a lot of, these are real large pieces of granite, like pink granite rock. So this should give you a very strong return. So in fact, when I tone the settings down for this lake, what I'm actually doing is I actually turn the brightness down. It was at 97%, so I actually turn it down to about sometimes 94, sometimes even 92. So turning down the brightness really allows you to see some of the detail in the rock itself. So if I'm looking to see kind of some, I want to see if it's two boulders or if it's just one, you know, I just need to get a little bit more information. So that's why I adjust the brightness. And if you think about it like adjusting, if you guys are familiar with cameras, brightness is like the, it's sort of like the white level of the picture. So when you turn up the brightness, you are increasing the exposure. So you can overexpose the side imaging picture, and when you do that, you lose some of the detail in these higher exposed parts. So it'd be like the rocks right here. And so I'm just gonna pause it to show you what I mean real quick. So this looks to be some kind of rock. So if I turn this all the way up to 100, turn it all the way up to 100, you'll see that we just lost some detail in this image right here. If I turn it down, you can see that now all of a sudden I can see more detail on this rock. Can kind of tell where it variates. So that's just a little tip for you. And then on the contrast side, so normally this right now I have the contrast on default. So default I found is it'll sit right at about 50%. It's generally pretty good for just about every situation. There's a few instances where you might want to adjust your contrast more. So in this case, if I am trying to if I'm trying to figure out like fish, if I'm trying to look at where a fish might be inside of a rock, the fish is going to be a strong return. The rock is also going to be a strong return. So sometimes turning it down might help you differentiate between the different returns, or turning it up. Generally, I prefer to turn it down because when you turn it up, that's when you're messing with the parts of the image that are high, the parts that are low. Veer it off course a little bit. Alright, so we're just going to keep scanning this, and just going to put this on default. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for variations in the bottom, things like rock piles. I'm looking for places where it goes from a bright yellow to a dark reddish color. That on this color palette, this is the amber color palette, that on this color palette indicates a transition point where it goes from a soft bottom to a hard bottom. So yeah, so it looks like really some good rock right here. This is kind of like a cliff, and so this goes much deeper. So this rock right here might be pretty good for us. It's pretty tall. So we're just gonna pause this right here. What we're gonna do is we are going to mark this position. We're gonna mark this spot real quick, and you can see that this is 54.9 feet away from my boat. Almost 55 feet away from my boat. So when I mark it, I use this little symbol right here, and that just means, hey, you know, I'm interested in this, and I'm gonna come back. And when I come back, what I'm gonna do now is I'm gonna give it a second pass, and I'm gonna change my settings from 455 over to 1120, which is the megahertz, and might have to adjust the brightness down. Ooh, yeah, see, look at that. Auto settings way messed up. We're going to scan the other side of this. We're going to scan the other side of this bank here. This is a pretty deep area, so I figure this is a pretty good spot, especially during the heat of the summer. The water temp's about 87 degrees, so it is very hot outside right now. This is a nice deep spot for fish to come and hang out, maybe party a little bit, maybe do a little bit of drinking, a little bit of smoking, a little bit of this. Alright. Keep going. So now I've actually got, I'm using these are not the auto settings, so I'm using the amber color profile, and this is on 1120 megahertz, side imaging. I have brightness set to 100%. I have contrast set to 60%. Found that is better to ramp up the contrast just a bit because there's a lot of rock down here. And oh, what is this? What is this? What is this? There appears
that looks
to be
like a lot of fish to me.
Well, if sea bass sees the fish, they must be there. That's always been my rule. Look at this. Guys, there is a lot of fish down there. Hold on, I'm gonna pause this for just a second. Oh, wow. Wow. Look at all, I mean, you can see the shadows, and you can see there's hundreds of fish down there. I don't think I've ever seen that many fish in one location. This is like a fish party right here. This is a fish party, and you could see them clear as day. You know, matter of fact, I'm gonna take a little screenshot right here. And I'm just gonna zoom in so you guys can see what they look like. So you can see you can see the shadow of the fish. You can also see all the individual shadows. So most of these fish are at the bottom, but the shadows here represent fish that are higher in the water column. So we've got quite a bit at the bottom. We've got quite a bit in the middle here. So I'm definitely gonna drop a little marker buoy here, and we are definitely gonna fish this area. Based off of how many fish this is, I'd say this is probably a school of white bass. They tend to school like that. Oh shit! Get the net, get the net! Oh! It came off, it came off. That had to have been a striper. That had to have been a huge striper. I got the net! Alright, so I'm gonna try something new here. I've got my GoPro camera on this umbrella rig, and then attached to the outsides are the actual lures. And I have never done anything like this before, so I've got the camera rolling. Let's see if we can catch something. Guys, so unfortunately I wasn't able to show you a catch on that demo, but I've got another demo for you. This is going to be for folks that just have, you know, traditional sonar, so traditional broadband, either multi-beam or single beam sonar. So I'm going to be showing you guys the trick for finding structure and finding fish. The first step obviously is to find the structure, just like I did with the side imaging. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to go into my settings here, and I'm going to show you guys the settings that I use when I'm first looking for structure. So the first thing I do, I keep it on chirp or around 200 kilohertz. That's a pretty narrow beam. I don't want to make it too wide because then we'll get too much stuff on the screen. So what I'll actually do is I'll go into sonar setup, and then we'll go to scroll speed, and from auto we'll actually change the scroll speed to 1. So what we're doing now is we are changing the scroll speed to the absolute slowest. So I haven't really messed with any of the other settings, the gain or anything like that. The range is all on auto. Well, best practice actually is to go ahead and bump this range up to about double what the depth is, And so now that we have these settings in here, so the range is twice the depth, the sonar setup, the scroll speed is set to 1 or the slowest. What I'm gonna do now is I am going to slowly, at about 2 miles an hour, I'm just gonna run my boat, and we're gonna keep running it until we get kind of a full picture of the water and what's going on. So I'm gonna go ahead and drive this, and when the picture is done, I'll go ahead and show you guys that. I have trolled for quite some distance, and what you see here, this image, I'm gonna go ahead and screenshot this so that I can show y'all clearer image. What you see here is, this is in scroll speed 1, this is me going through the whole section here, and this actually tells me a few things. So number 1, where this double line is, that indicates a harder bottom, and where you see that double line disappear, you can actually see that there is fish. You can see these fish right here. So that's the transition where it goes from hard to soft. Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Oh. Come on. That's a good fish right there. You can use anything, any kind of fish finder can catch you fish like this. You don't have to spend $500. All right guys, that's about it for this video. The sun is setting out at beautiful Inks Lake State Park. I had a lot of fun filming this, and I had a ton of fun putting this video together for you guys. If you got any value out of it whatsoever, please, please, please hit like and make sure to subscribe so that you guys can get notified the next time I post a video. Comment below if I left anything out, or if you really enjoyed these videos. Otherwise, y'all take care, be nice to each other. See y'all on the next one.